Ever wondered how much of what you think you know about the brain is actually true? Often, what we believe about our gray matter is based on common misconceptions, also known as cognitive myths. These myths, far from being harmless curiosities, can actually distort our understanding of how our brains work, and by extension how we perceive ourselves and others. In this video, we're going to challenge some of these widespread cognitive myths. We'll be exploring 9 of the most common ones, providing you with the scientific truth behind each. We'll delve into topics as diverse as brain usage, the regeneration of brain cells, and the contentious issue of left brain versus right brain dominance. Each myth we debunk will bring you one step closer to a clearer, more accurate understanding of your own cognitive processes. So buckle up as we dive into the fascinating world of cognitive myths and the science that debunks them. Myth number 1. We only use 10% of our brains. Now, where did this myth originate? Well, it's a bit unclear, but some suggest that this theory began in the early 20th century, possibly from a misinterpretation of neurological research or the metaphorical statements of psychologists. However, let's delve into the facts. Scientific evidence has shown that we use much more than just 10% of our brains. Neuroimaging technologies, such as functional magnetic resonance imaging and positron emission tomography scans, have allowed scientists to create heat maps of brain activity. These maps show that even during sleep, all parts of the brain show some level of activity. And during complex tasks, many areas of the brain are lit up, demonstrating a high level of engagement and activity. Moreover, consider this: our brain is the most energy-hungry organ in our body. It makes up just 2% of our body weight, yet uses approximately 20% of our total energy. Now, would evolution allow such a wasteful design as a 90% dormant brain? It's unlikely. Furthermore, if we were to use only 10% of our brains, then damage to other areas would not affect us. Yet clinical evidence shows us that damage to almost any area of the brain has specific and profound effects on mental function. So it's clear that we utilize much more than just 10% of our brains. Myth number 2, brain cells can't regenerate. Let's take a little stroll down memory lane, back to a time when science was still figuring out the complex mysteries of the brain. It was then, in the early days, that the belief was born that brain cells, once lost, were gone forever. This idea was rooted in the observation that, unlike other cells in the body, neurons in the brain did not seem to undergo mitosis or cell division. It was a belief held as truth for many decades. However, as with many aspects of science, our understanding evolves with time and research. And so it happened with this myth. Over the past few decades, thanks to the relentless pursuit of knowledge by neuroscientists around the globe, we now know that the brain is far more dynamic and adaptable than we once thought. Specifically, we've discovered that the brain does indeed have the ability to generate new cells, a process known as neurogenesis. Most notably, this occurs in the hippocampus, a region of the brain associated with learning and memory. Studies have shown that thousands of new neurons are born in the hippocampus every day, even into old age. So while it's true that not all areas of the brain can regenerate cells to the same extent, it's far from accurate to say that brain cells can't regenerate at all. Our brains are constantly changing and adapting, proving once again that they are marvels of nature. So it's not true that once brain cells die, they're gone forever. Myth number 3. Some people are left-brained and some are right-brained. Now, this is a fascinating one. The myth originates from the 19th century when scientists first began to explore the functions of different parts of the brain. They noticed that the brain's 2 hemispheres appeared to have somewhat different roles. This led to the idea that the left hemisphere, which is associated with logic and analytical thinking, dominates in some people, making them left-brained. Conversely, the right hemisphere, known for creativity and intuition, was thought to dominate others, making them right-brained. This theory was popularized in the 70s with self-help books and personality tests claiming to help individuals tap into their dominant hemisphere to maximize their potential. It's a compelling idea, isn't it? But alas, the reality is a bit more complex. Modern neuroscience has found that the brain isn't strictly divided into 2 separate entities with different functions. While it's true that some functions are lateralized, meaning they're primarily managed by one hemisphere, this doesn't translate into a strict division of labor. Consider language, for example. It's often cited as a left brain function, but while areas in the left hemisphere play crucial roles in understanding and producing language, the right hemisphere also contributes to processing tone, context, and metaphors. Similarly, creativity doesn't solely belong to the right hemisphere. Both hemispheres interact and collaborate regardless of the task at hand, whether it's solving a math problem or composing a symphony. In fact, a study conducted by the University of Utah found no evidence of hemisphere dominance in individuals. They analyzed over 1,000 brain scans and found that activity was similar across both hemispheres. So while it's fun to think of ourselves as either a logical, left-brained person or a creative, right-brained individual, the truth is that we're all a bit of both. Our brains are wonderfully complex and interconnected, with both hemispheres working together to make us who we are. So the idea of being left-brained or right-brained is nothing more than a myth. Myth number 4, drinking alcohol kills brain cells. This myth stems from the Prohibition era when temperance activists used it as a scare tactic. The truth, however, is a bit more complex. According to modern neuroscience, moderate alcohol consumption doesn't actually cause a mass murder of your brain cells. Let's get this straight. When you drink, alcohol does affect the brain, but it's primarily the communication between neurons that's disrupted, not the neurons themselves. Over time, excessive drinking can lead to a condition called alcohol-related brain damage. This can cause problems with cognitive abilities and memory and may even alter your mood. But it's crucial to note that this damage is often due to thiamine deficiency, a common occurrence in heavy drinkers, rather than the direct death of brain cells. So while excessive drinking can cause damage, it doesn't actually kill brain cells. Myth number 5, humans have the biggest brains. Now this is a myth that has been around for quite some time, perhaps due to our species' penchant for self-aggrandizement. But here's the truth. When it comes to sheer size, our brains don't hold the top spot. Whales, for instance, have brains that weigh in at a whopping 15 pounds, dwarfing our measly 3-pound human brains. And it's not just about weight. Elephants also claim a larger brain size, with their brains tipping the scales at around 11 pounds. However, it's important to remember that size isn't everything. While other animals may have bigger brains, it's the complexity of the human brain with its dense network of connections and sophisticated structures that sets us apart. We have developed brains capable of abstract thought, creativity, and complex problem-solving, which are qualities not directly linked to size. So while we may like to think we have the biggest brains, we actually don't. Myth number 6, memory works like a video recorder. Let's pull apart this common misconception. The origin of this myth is relatively easy to understand. We often perceive our memories as precise, unchanging chronicles of our past, similar to how a video recorder captures and stores moments exactly as they happened. However, scientific evidence presents a different story. Memory, it turns out, is far more complex and not as reliable as we might think. Rather than a static, unchanging recording, our memories are dynamic, constantly being reconstructed and influenced by various factors. Consider this. Every time we recall a memory, we're not replaying a perfect recording. We're actually recreating that event in our minds, and each recreation can be subtly different from the last. This is why two people can recall the same event differently, or why our recollection of an event can change over time. Moreover, our memories are susceptible to distortion and misinformation. A famous study by psychologist Elizabeth Loftus showed that people could be led to remember false events through suggestion, demonstrating that our memories are not as infallible as we might believe. In essence, memory is more like a game of telephone where the message is altered slightly with each retelling than a video recorder that captures and replays events exactly as they happened. So our memories aren't as accurate as we'd like to believe. Myth number 7, IQ tests measure intelligence. This myth has roots in the early 20th century when French psychologist Alfred Binet developed the first intelligence test. The goal was noble, to identify school children who needed extra help. But over time, this tool has been misunderstood and misused to represent a person's overall intelligence, which is far more complex than a single score can convey. Scientific evidence shows that IQ tests measure a specific set of cognitive abilities, things like problem-solving, reasoning, and memory. These skills are important, no doubt, They can help predict academic achievement and job performance, but they don't represent the full range of human intelligence. You see, intelligence isn't just about solving puzzles or memorizing facts. It's also about creativity, emotional understanding, adaptability, and so much more. Howard Gardner, a psychologist at Harvard University, proposed the theory of multiple intelligences. He suggested that we have different types of intelligence, including musical, interpersonal, and naturalistic intelligence, to name a few. These forms of intelligence are not typically measured by traditional IQ tests. Let's consider this. Two individuals may score the same on an IQ test, but their abilities can vary greatly. One might be a brilliant mathematician but struggle with social interactions. The other might be an empathetic counselor but find complex equations baffling. Both are intelligent in their own ways, but an IQ test wouldn't capture these differences. Moreover, IQ tests can be influenced by various factors, including cultural and socio-economic backgrounds. A person's score might be more reflective of their access to quality education, or their familiarity with the test's language and cultural context, rather than their actual intelligence. In conclusion, while IQ tests can provide valuable insights into certain cognitive abilities, they fall short in capturing the full spectrum of human intelligence. A high or low IQ score does not define a person's worth or potential. Intelligence is multidimensional and far more intricate than a single number can encapsulate. So, an IQ test doesn't tell the whole story of a person's intelligence. Myth number 8, brain damage is always permanent. This myth has its roots in traditional beliefs that once injured, the brain cannot recover. However, modern science has debunked this notion. The human brain is a marvel of adaptability and resilience, a quality known as neuroplasticity. This means the brain can reshape itself by creating new connections and pathways among nerve cells or neurons, compensating for injury or disease. Studies have shown that even after serious brain injuries, many individuals can regain lost functions through a process known as neurorehabilitation. This process utilizes targeted activities and therapies to stimulate brain recovery. While the extent and speed of recovery can vary greatly depending on the individual and the severity of the injury, it's clear that the brain's ability to adapt and heal goes far beyond what was once believed. So while brain damage can be severe, it's not always permanent. Myth number 9, older adults can't learn new things. This myth has been around for quite a while, and it's high time we put it to bed. It's a common belief that as we age, our capacity to learn new things dwindles, that our brain becomes rigid, stuck in its ways, and can't absorb new information like a young brain can. But where did this myth come from? It's most likely a result of cultural stereotypes and societal norms that underestimate the potential of an older brain. Let's delve into the science. A wealth of research suggests that older adults can and do learn new things. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and adapt, is not just a young person's game. In fact, studies have shown that older adults can exhibit similar levels of neuroplasticity as their younger counterparts. It's true that learning might take a little more time and repetition for some older adults, but it's absolutely possible, and it's a process that can be enhanced with practice. Moreover, lifelong learning isn't just possible, it's beneficial for the brain. Engaging in cognitively stimulating activities has been linked to a slower cognitive decline and a lower risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. It keeps the brain active and healthy, much like physical exercise does for the body. So let's debunk this myth once and for all. Age is not a barrier, but a gateway to new learning experiences and opportunities. So age is not a barrier to learning new things. And there you have it. 9 cognitive myths debunked. We've journeyed through the fascinating world of the brain, exploring and debunking common misconceptions. Starting with the myth that we only use 10% of our brain, we've learned that every part of our brain has a purpose. We've debunked the myth that brain cells can't regenerate, and we've understood that left brain versus right brain dominance is an oversimplification of how our brains actually function. We've also cleared up the misunderstanding that drinking alcohol kills brain cells, and that humans have the biggest brains. We've tackled the misconception that our memory works like a video recorder and that IQ tests measure intelligence. We've dispelled the myth that brain damage is always permanent and that older adults can't learn new things. These myths are pervasive, But with a deeper understanding of the brain's workings, we're in a better position to challenge them. So the next time you hear one of these myths, you'll know the truth. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the fascinating world of the brain.